Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Lobo Tiggre from the IndependentSpeculator.com. He's speaking to us from Puerto Rico. Welcome back to the show, Lobo.
Good to be on again, Jim.
A lot at stake, the U.S.-China trade talks back on. The president already threatening to up Chinese tariffs from 10% to 25% almost immediately on Friday if those talks don't work out. Will that happen, or is it dangerous to speculate?
Yeah, sure. Of course, it's dangerous to speculate. I wouldn't even call that speculating. I would call that gambling. I do think there's a difference. You know, a speculator sees a trend in motion and, you know, guesses about what's going to happen in the future. That's what makes it speculative. But it's not just throwing darts at the board or not knowing. I mean, you see something, you think you know where it's going, whereas this, it could go either way. Though, honestly, they have, right now they have, just this evening to try to hammer this out, and they haven't yet. So that seems very unlikely. That being said, even if he does order the tariffs increased tomorrow, that's a process, and only some of them can be increased right away, the ones that are already in the mix, and then the other ones that he wants to put tariffs on, that would have to go through a process. So it's not, one, irreversible, and two, I don't think it's instantaneous, not across the board. So it's the sort of thing that will take a while to work its way through. So that doesn't mean the world ends, right? If you're a person who depends on imports from China, it doesn't mean the world ends tomorrow. But it's clearly a bad signal, and we see that in the broader markets, which are not happy about it. If anything, that high risk, I'm surprised that we haven't seen a bigger sell-off. It tells me, I think, that people, despite all this late stage posturing or trouble, one way or the other, I think for the most part, Mr. Market expects this to work out. So that's interesting, because if he's wrong, that has big implications. It could mean a lot of pain on Wall Street. It could mean bad news for commodities. Even commodities in short supply, and with China being such a big buyer, if there's bad news affecting China, that could affect commodities pretty much across the board. So this is a big deal, and I'm not going to tell you which way it's going to go. I'm saying, as I think I did last time we were on the show, that it's something people should watch. And I think rather than try to get in front of, what could be a falling knife, I'd let it fall and see what happens and then go from there. Plenty of time to profit after we see which way things are going.
And how much of the U.S. equity market is actually tied up with Chinese trade? Is it a very small percentage?
But it's interesting that you ask that, because the actual numbers, if you look at businesses that are directly impacted, it's not that much. You look at the various charts I've seen from brokerages and banks and things, and the direct impact is limited to certain businesses, and they can pass the cost on to the consumers. And so you don't really know actually how much that will be until the consumers either ante up or they don't. And, you can't know that in advance, but it's clearly a drag, despite, the phrasing of putting tariffs on China or Chinese goods. It's the Americans who pay the tariff. The Chinese sell it at whatever price, and the tariff means that the American pays more for that same thing, and that money goes to the U.S. government, ironically. So it's a drag on the U.S. economy. And that can affect everybody, even if you have nothing to do with China. You don't import anything. If the consumer is more strapped now because the cheap stuff from China is not as cheap as it was before, that affects everybody. So I'm not surprised to see, the Dow, the S&P 500, and the broader indices really react very strongly to good or bad news on this issue. because I think it does sort of spread throughout the entire economy, and there is nobody who isn't impacted when you consider all the connections.
Now, the idea behind higher tariffs is to encourage domestic production of goods. Is the U.S. ready to make everybody's Crocs and other cheap plastic goods that China cranks out?
Well, that's what the economics textbooks say, but that's not what's going on today. Originally, that's how the U.S. had its tariffs. It was a young country compared to the industrial might of England back in the day, and tariffs were put in place to protect the young U.S. industries, give them time to grow up and be able to compete, head to head, toe to toe, as it were. I think that was a flawed argument back then. I would say that's a flawed argument today, but that's not what Trump is doing. He's not trying to protect, U.S. people who want to make stuff for everything's a dollar store. He's trying to whack China around. He's trying to cause them pain to get them to change their policy. As we keep hearing, it's not just about how much China imports from the U.S., it's about the intellectual property, about forced technology transfers, about just outright theft of, best practices and whatnot. This is not the classic 19th century version of protectionism that you read about in the textbook. This is a different thing. And even though I'm no fan of tariffs, I understand why the administration felt the need to have this conversation and confrontation with China. There is some logic to the point that China was given some help, sort of like we were talking about with the U.S. back in the 18th century or early 19th century. China was this big, poor country that needed help getting on its feet, and it was given special status. It was given help. It was and that really, you can't make that case anymore for the world's second largest economy that's producing millionaires faster than the U.S. is. So I understand why you would want to say, oh, wait a minute, let's renegotiate something here. So personally, I wouldn't have gone about it with the tariffs. So that being said, I have to say it does seem to have brought China to the negotiation table, and we'll have to see if it works.
We'll have more with Lobo Tiggre right after this.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp., RMO, on the TSX Venture Exchange. Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp. is a Canadian-based mineral exploration project generator. The company currently holds multiple property interests in Ontario with joint venture partners and is seeking further joint venture partners for other drill-ready properties in our portfolio. For more information, please visit our website at rmroyalty.com or call me at 604-922-2030.
Cypress Development Corp's flagship lithium project is located just east of Albemarle's Silver Peak mine in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. A 12-hole exploration drill program for lithium-enriched claystone on Cypress's 100% controlled properties is now underway. Cypress Development Corp trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the pink CYDVF, and on Frankfurt's C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Lobo Tiggre. Lobo, the U.S. seized a North Korean ship. Can you give us some details about that and how that might affect markets?
For sure. I'm not a maritime journalist, so I don't have a whole lot of details. I've just seen the headlines and the quick stories everybody has seen. It's a very large ship, North Korea's second largest cargo ship. It was said to be involved in violating sanctions, and therefore the U.S. seized it. Is taking it now to American Samoa. I think the bigger significance here, there's not a whole lot of trade between the U.S. and North Korea, and if North Korea has trouble importing coal, maybe that helps North Korea come to the negotiation table on those denuclearization talks. But maybe not. Maybe that has the opposite effect. I don't think the ruler there is entirely a stable personality, so I have no idea what this will do there. But barring an actual nuclear confrontation with North Korea, I see that as fairly contained, not really something that most resource investors are going to lose sleep over. I think the bigger message here, though, is that the ship was seized for violating sanctions. And who else is in the news for sanctions and trying to get out of sanctions? Well, Iran, of course. And there have been these exemptions to the sanctions on Iran, and those are supposed to sunset. And this is I would say, a message to Iran that if you're going to try to violate the sanctions and sell your oil anyway, we may seize your ships. I think it's a message to China, once again, if you're not going to play nice with us, we may seize sanctioned oil that's headed your way and hurt you there. So this could have an impact on the negotiations with China. It could also have an impact on the oil market. So, to be continued. I don't know how this is going to play out, but it's a very interesting development. It's hot off the presses now, and it could have very significant impacts, I think, in the energy market.
Is this also a message to Venezuela and perhaps the ships carrying their oil?
Well, it could be. There's talk about blockading Cuba, whether they're big friends, but since Venezuela is still very clearly on the path to self-destruction, I'm not really sure there's much needed there. Nietzsche said that an object that's about to fall deserves to be pushed, but I don't think the U.S. needs to go there. I think Maduro goes away one way or the other without intervention. But of course, there is a humanitarian crisis at the same time, so there might be intervention there. But in terms of the impact for really energy investors, Venezuelan oil, I think the assumption is that's going away anyway. And even if the U.S. did intervene and achieve regime change down there, it would take a lot of time to bring things back online in Venezuela. They have basically plundered their oil business and not reinvested in it. So, even turning a new leaf isn't gonna just open the spigots. It's gonna take a lot of work and money, which they don't have. So, I think I can't speak for the entire market, but if there's any part of the market that's not pricing in, protracted decreased output from Venezuela, I think they're making a mistake.
We'll have more with Lobo Tiggre right after this.
Arctic Star Exploration, operated by a team of proven mine finders, is focused on diamonds in Finland and the Northwest Territories of Canada. Work programs are underway in Finland and Canada. Arctic Star trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol ADD, on Frankfurt symbol 82A1, and the OTCQB symbol ASDZF. Please visit our website arcticstar.ca or call us at 604-689-1799.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Lobo Tiggre. Lobo, what's going on with uranium?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that because it has corrected again this week, and there's been a lot of excitement about uranium. I myself have perhaps uncharacteristically waxed rhapsodic about the opportunities in uranium, and so the price retreats, we have seen some correction there that has some people worried there's something wrong with the uranium story. So I'm going to double down here and say, no, I don't think there's anything wrong with the uranium story. It's a volatile market. Nothing goes up in a straight line. The overall trend is still one of recovery. I'm not a technical analyst, but if you draw the lower bound of the trend, the current correction is nowhere near that lower bound, and it's dropped, 25 cents here, 50 cents there, a dime here and there or something. It hasn't been a major plunge. I think what we're seeing right now is a normal and perhaps even healthy correction. There are specifics that we don't need to get into, some contracts expiring and new ones coming on, and maybe a little bit of secondary supply coming on, again, from Japan. Interestingly enough, Cameco commented on that and said from the amounts there, they might be able to buy the entire amount of secondary supply and turn around and sell it again at higher prices. So, no, I think these are normal wobbles, and I think the overall story is very positive, and I think that's particularly exciting right now because you have these fundamentals, right? You can't mine the stuff for the current price, and the biggest and lowest cost producers in the world are shutting mines down because the price is below the cost of production. And the price is so low that even if you could make money mining now. You deplete your asset for pennies when if you held it for higher prices later, you could mine for dollars. So supply is being constrained. The demand isn't going away. There's a headline about 3 Mile Island shutting down, but the fact is that there are plants being built all around the world. The U.S. itself relies for about 20% of its electricity generation on nuclear power, and that can't be switched to windmills overnight. So the demand is there. The supply is being constrained. I really see this as a one-way street with volatility along the way, but one-way street going higher. And on top of that, you have the situation in the U.S. where the Department of Commerce has looked at the U.S. dependence on foreign uranium for its power, and that dependence is over 95%. That report has been delivered to Trump. He has about 70 days to come to a decision, and given everything we've seen, not just of Trump's rhetoric, but his actions, he's Mr. America First. It's very difficult for me to imagine that he won't do something to try to prop up U.S. uranium production. And you might say, well, the U.S. gets most of its uranium from Canada or maybe down under, right? These are allies, longtime allies of the U.S. Well, Trump has put taxes on Canadian lumber already. I don't know that really helps very much. So I think there's an extra potential windfall here. Now, it's not necessary to make money playing the uranium story this year for Trump to deliver a boost to U.S. producers. But if he does, it's something extra on top of the very, very strong fundamentals I was talking about before.
Vanadium. First of all, what is it? What's it used for? And what are the prices for it doing?
Yeah, we've talked about this before. It's sort of, in a way, uranium's cousin. A lot of uranium deposits have vanadium in there. A lot of uranium deposits are actually vanadium deposits with a uranium credit. But since vanadium prices have been so low, you just mine the uranium. So interesting metal. They tend to correlate. What happened was the vanadium price spiked last year when the Chinese imposed a new regulation requiring a higher amount of vanadium in rebar, which is used in construction. And it's a big source of demand for it, and they greatly increased the amount required. So it's a small market. This new regulation caused the price to quintuple in fairly short order. But it seemed to me that was too far, too fast. I told your listeners before it was likely to correct. It went up from $5 a pound to about $30 a pound. It's now corrected back down under $10 a pound again. Now, so what happens next? Who knows? I've read that the Chinese have actually been slow to implement this rule. It was supposed to go into effect last November, and on paper it seems that it did. But enforcement of the rule has been, shall we say, lax. And so, there was a advanced pricing in of something that hasn't entirely materialized yet. But I think that will come about. The Chinese are serious about several things, including controlling pollution, including the quality of construction. It's quite embarrassing when you build a whole new apartment building and it keels over. We've seen pictures of these sorts of things, right? So I think the Chinese are serious about this. I think they will work this in, and I think that will support a higher vanadium price than before. And on top of that, we have the vanadium batteries, which are interesting because, for large scale, industrial scale electricity storage, you can build a giant battery the way Tesla does. But those things generate a lot of heat, and the vanadium ones don't. So they're in some ways a safer technology. We've seen reports actually of some large-scale lithium batteries overheating, catching fire, that sort of thing. Wouldn't have that worry with a vanadium battery. So I think that's something that's coming in the future. Right now, it's really about this Chinese rebar thing. And what we're hearing is that the Chinese have been slow to really crack down on this. So prices have pretty much crashed. When will they go up again? I'm not going to promise that. But I do think they will. I do think they will stabilize at higher prices than before, and I think there'll be money to be made there. And I think I mentioned this before, but I'll reinforce this. I think the safest way to play this, since we don't know exactly what's going to happen with vanadium, is to find a uranium play that has a vanadium credit. That way, if the Chinese crack down and vanadium prices take off again, that company gets a tailwind there. And if they don't, and nothing happens with vanadium, no harm, no foul. It's a relatively asymmetrical risk way of speculating on this.
And here I thought all these years a vanadium was a Canadian who'd lost their home and had to live in their car. A vanadium.
No, it's Canadians who live in Vancouver.
We're vanadiums.
No. There you go.
There you go. Lobo, thank you so much for chatting with us.
As always, Jim, happy to help.
My guest has been Lobo Tiggre from the independentspeculator.com. He was speaking to us from beautiful Puerto Rico. If you have any questions for Lobo or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. Find us on Twitter @HowStreet. And our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.